West Coast, noon on in the East. Hope and somewhere in between in the great United States, you're going to be Central Time Zone or Mountain Time Zone. So we're happy to have you all today. My name is Mark Sotkowski, and I am Rapid Scale's Chief Strategy Officer. And with me today, I have Tom Bailey, Mimecast Head of Product Marketing, and we have got a great session for you all today. Really excited to have Tom, and he's going to go through the COVID world with Mimecast and what's happening out there and all the crazy things that are going on around email security and how you all can learn about this and take advantage of it. So as always, we have our housekeeping items. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. The deck and the recording will be sent out via email as soon as they are available. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please chat them through the Q&A. And Miss Summer Fagoni or Miss Nikki Salazar are online with us, and they'll be answering them. Or if we have time at the end of the presentation, we'll go ahead and get started and answer them for you. But really excited to talk about what we have happening here today. So with that, Tom, I'm going to hand it over to you and tell us a little bit about this report that Mimecast put together. Tom, you're on mute.
That, my friends, is what's called a rookie mistake. 18 months into a work from home imperative. So if you are scratching off your bingo card that says, hey, I think you're on mute, you might have just achieved bingo. Hey, my name is Tom Bailey. I'm delighted to be here. So Mark, thank you again for the offer. You guys run an incredible ship. The opportunity to talk today is largely around the observations that we're making within our 5th annual report, which we of course entitled State of Email Security. Now this one in particular is an interesting one because over the course of the previous 4 years, obviously, we were not in a work from home environment. We were not in lockdown or a pandemic or COVID. And as a result, the commentary, the survey results, the findings and the analysis is fascinating. Much of it will probably resonate really well with all of our listeners today. But I think there's some really great observations for both IT ops as well as security ops as we think about this forthcoming year. So yeah, a little details here, but we encourage you, we're going to make available the links and where to find this at the end. But obviously there's a great deal of information here. Some of the key findings, and this is part of an infographic that comes part of the report. We're going to talk today about, one, the nature of email in general and how email is being used as a catalyst for other types of attack, or more specifically, we all know this notion of blended attacks, right? That's not new. However, we're starting to see this sort of next gen, if you will, blended attack that's beginning to leverage the tools that our workers are using in the face of a pandemic, a work from home. The other interesting observation, Mark, you and I have talked about this previously, is the continued rise of ransomware. This one frustrates me beyond all compare because it's one of those things that I feel like we, as an industry, we really should clamp down a little harder, right? And what does it mean? But it's also a recognition on my part that we might be living with ransomware in a significant way for many years to come. So lots of great observations and talking points. Mark, I know looking at the report, you might have had a few questions in here too. But I think the overall sense that you'll receive from this report has a lot, obviously, to do with the opportunistic nature of the hackers, the adversary. In March of last year, you'll all recall it was bumpy. Suddenly we had end user, we had workers that were suddenly finding themselves in many cases for the very first time working remotely. So there was a huge, there was a CapEx issue, there was operating cost issues, there was a whole bunch of things that our customers, our mutual customers, were faced with. And one of the things, of course, that they needed to implement quickly was a sense of security. And so as a result, I think all of us as a community, we've done a good job 18 months on through the cyber security equivalent of wear a mask and wash your hands, right? Our end users have become relatively savvy on what it means to protect their home environment. There's one piece at the bottom, and it's this bottom bullet. And Mark, you and I have talked about this, but it's the in 2017, 18, and clearly into 19, the world was moving towards SaaS. It was moving towards cloud-based models. We've been seeing this shift, this digital transformation shift over the course of the last decade. A sustained work from home environment, sudden lockdown, all of that has been accelerated massively. So when you look, for example, at Microsoft Teams adoption, you will see, a very healthy growth over the last decade, and now, of course, a sudden spike as we needed to leverage these collaboration platforms and messaging platforms in order to conduct business.
Yeah, Tom, we've obviously seen it here at Rapid Scale, right? We're in the space with Mimecast, and Mimecast is our partner around email security. We've seen a tremendous uptick in attacks from hackers. What is it that the hackers are doing out there during a pandemic? Why do you think it increased so highly? Is it because they're less secure when they're working from home?
I think some of it has been the work from home phenomena. I mean, suddenly there are new targets that were previously unavailable to you on different IP addresses from that of their network environment, which is more secure. So obviously the attack surface grew exponentially for attackers of all sizes. The opportunistic hacker is the one hacker or adversary is the one that is able to, and we saw a ton of this, we continue to see this, that was leveraging the news cycle in order to create anxiety, chaos, churn, right? Pressure, suddenly it's like, hey, here's where you get your stimulus check. I just got this on my phone, right? Smishing attacks. Smishing attacks went up. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I said that's a phenomenal example, right? They didn't just target businesses anymore, they targeted individuals, but the individuals are logging on from home through their business accounts. And who doesn't want to open that stimulus check email when it comes to you, right? That's a perfect example of an opportunistic hacker going after where everybody is worried about how am I going to put food on the table next week, and they get a that looks very, very legitimate. And next thing you know, they open that email and they've just ransomware the entire organization, right? It's kind of crazy how folks got so involved in doing that. And I mean, I know you know the stats a lot better than I do, Tom. I've heard it ranged from 500% to 1200%. What's Mimecast's stat on the number of phishing attacks?
Yeah, I mean, the way we break it out, of course, is when we look at a phishing attack and we break it down into all of its distinct parts, right? So we do think about classic phishing, which is email. We think about spear phishing, which of course is, socially engineered advanced form of phishing. You then think about the Beck attack, right? Business email compromise and how phishing attacks fall into that. But we also look at the other smishing, right? So SMS phishing, whaling, those very specific attacks against C-level executives. They're not immune. In fact, they're actually very ripe targets. As I review Mark's title again, they tend to be the ones that it's kind of like, well, they don't usually see a lot of phishing attacks. And so when they come in, they tend to look very legitimate. And if you're going to go after a C-level individual as an opportunistic hacker, you're spending a great deal of time trying to understand everything that a mark likes, right? You're leveraging tracking technology in the email itself. Tracking technology, those of us in marketing, we know about this. That's like you get that email that says, hey, check out this great thing. You click on it, and it gives a little bit of metadata back to the marketer that they opened the email, that they spent time with it. But you can also capture other things. Timestamp. If I capture your timestamp, and I know, Mark, that you're a West Coast person and it's currently showing Central Time, and I know that there's an office for you in Chicago, my email to you is going to say, hey, it looks like you're visiting the Chicago office. Right there, I've gained additional credibility right off the bat. So we saw very advanced forms of social engineering leveraging different types of tactics. Now, with that said, across the board, to answer your question, we're at about a 33, 35% increase across all of the metrics from where we were 18 months ago. So across the board, we're up 30-some%. Some are seeing greater than other. That's about the average.
That's wild. I mean, appreciate you sharing that with us. And I think it's important for our listeners to know that, Mimecast, you've been around
18 years.
How many?
18.
18 years. And if memory serves, you still have the most 0-day stoppages, right? You guys capture a lot that goes on out there.
Yeah, we do. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's because you're global, right? And people aren't attacking the US from the US. I'm sure we have attackers here, but we've got a lot of international attackers who are coming at us, in our off hours, and you guys are catching that stuff in Australia and you're catching it in Europe, and then all of a sudden it hits the US and you guys have already got it. You've quarantined it and you've defanged it, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If Mimecast email security, right?
That's right. I mean, one of the advantages with Mimecast, and one of the reasons that I came here, is because Mimecast had spent 18 years as an early adopter of cloud and is born in the cloud. It was built even before the notion of the cloud was bandied about as we do so much today. So as a result, we have data centers, obviously, globally, and each of those represent regional instances of our grid, effectively our cloud. The advantage of having all of those individual clouds and having them all connected into our network, our grid, is that we're allowing for effectively crowd surfing of threats to be socialized globally. So, for example, to your example, if something happens in Australia, we see a massive spike in ransomware. All the other grids globally are notified to that. Policies are auto-adjusted, right? Just in the event that this is a global phenomenon. In many cases, we see regional or theater-based malicious activity, right? But oftentimes it does spread global. So yes, I mean, having the 18 years under our belt, a focus and diligence around this notion of cyber resiliency, starting with email, has been the premise of the company.
It's why we chose you as our platinum partner, Tom.
And we thank you for it. Look, we just talked about email quite a bit. I had made this mention of the blended attack, or what we're seeing now, and I use this sparingly just because the notion of next gen is overused, but we're seeing this new form of attack that's leveraging email plus some other form factor. Now, one could argue that every attack leverages multiple different things. I mean, we're going to run a JavaScript here, shell over here. It's going to create a DLL, copy itself. We got a C2 server here, and we're going to call home, download. So there's always, like, every single attack has many different components. If you're interested, and I encourage you to take a look at some of the forensic or root cause analysis for any historical attack. It's fun to actually dissect them. The anatomy of an attack is something we do at Mimecast quite a bit, and I've done in my career quite a bit. But what we're seeing now is leveraging, in the example that we just gave, for example, the mobile device. So I suddenly get I end up getting an SMS that claims, I'm based in Boston, that it's from the state of Massachusetts, and it's relative to my stimulus check. I'm like, oh, okay, that's awesome. I click on that. It says, we are going to give you a document in Google Docs, right? What government entity is sending me a Google? Okay, please click this link and log in. You're like, sweet, right? Click the link, it looks exactly, because it's been scraped, it looks exactly like the Gmail or Google Docs login or G Suite login that you're so familiar with. It's identical. Guess what you do? You give up your login and your password. Bam, right. That easy. So we've seen tons of that. The latent threat there, right? Ransomware is it's not smash and grab. Smash and grab is a different type of attack pattern. Ransomware, you get hit with ransomware, you're hit with ransomware. You get involved in a credential theft, you now have a latent threat somewhere in your environment, because the best attackers get in and then go find a corner in a room and they sit quiet and they just listen.
And they wait.
They wait.
Opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And they unfortunately then they get you in. And for all of our listeners out there in our audience of sales partners, and by the way, guys, I'm in this industry and I was guilty of this myself for a long time. don't keep your passwords in a Word document or an Excel document on your laptop. Don't do that. Go get a password manager and get it encrypted and tight so that, to Tom's point, if somebody gets access to your machine, they may not ransomware you. They may look and find out that, oh, there's a spreadsheet in here named passwords. Oh, goodness. And what's on there? Not only all my business passwords, but all my personal passwords, right? And now they've got access to my bank account. And that's the kind of stuff that these attackers are actually doing. And, you know, we don't hear about it that much. I mean, Tom, obviously everybody on this call is probably aware of the pipeline attack that happened, right? Tell us a little bit, why do you think they paid so quickly in that particular attack rather than trying to resolve it?
Yeah, and good segue into the ransomware slide. Look, like everyone else in the cyber industry, as well as government officials, frankly, globally, guidance to organizations is not to pay the ransom. It emboldens the attacker. It emboldens other attackers. It shows for an easy victim. Paying them once, and this is a good topic because over the course of the last year and a half, we've seen ransomware evolve into a multi-payment system where the extortion is no longer just, hey, I've locked you out of your machine. That was ransomware V1. And you'd pay X amount of Bitcoin or whatever it is to get that machine or several machines unlocked. That still happens. After it's been unlocked, then they get the email from the attacker that says, great, thank you, we've unlocked your machines, here's the key to unlock. We need another payment, otherwise we're going to take all that client database information that we pulled from your machine as part of our ransomware payload, we're gonna put that on the dark web. We're gonna reveal that publicly. If you don't want that to happen, we need another Bitcoin, right? Wow. So we're beginning to see that paying once does not necessarily get you out of trouble. Plus, it can put you in even greater trouble too. I mean, think about this. A lot of these, as an industry, sometimes cybersecurity gets very caught up on this notion of attribution. Who is it that attacked me? Which nation state or which, group? Well, I typically don't like to encourage people to get too wrapped up about attribution, because let's say you do find out that it's a nation state. Great. What are you going to do about it? You don't have a lot of recourse, right, in order to go after a rogue state. So attribution, I think, is one of the wrong approaches. Instead, the thing, of course, to watch out for is to not pay these guys. So, and sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but the additional attribution piece has to do with the fact that you could be paying a known entity that is on a criminal watch list by the US federal government. If you do that, you are now aiding and abetting a terrorist organization and subject to Patriot Act laws. So think very hard about paying on ransomware.
That's amazing. And Tom, I know this wasn't part of our script, but you're obviously very knowledgeable. Something that I learned, you mentioned the dark web, right? And I remember reading an article, I think it was on LinkedIn, about how malicious attacks are no longer like a single organization doing everything. They've got hackers who just write the code, who go put the code on the dark web, and then somebody else can come and buy that code off the dark web, and then they're actually attacking, right? So it's this, it's this enterprise now. It's wow.
No, this is a topic I am fascinated by. And there's another talk that I do that speaks specifically about the commodification of the dark web, the commercialization of malware as a service, ransomware as a service, phishing as a service. All of this is growing as boutique industries right under our noses. And I don't know if you've seen some of the screen grabs from it. I don't encourage you to go to the dark web and go find this yourself. Look for screen grabs of some of the interfaces, the shopping cart that the attackers are presenting to people. It's like, all right, there's a sale today on phishing as a phishing kit. There's a sale today. Great, I'll take 2 of those. And then what else do we have here? It's like, huh, and their customer service is outstanding, right? That's the other thing that blows me away. There's like a live chat that pops up and it's like, hey, how can I help you today? We've got a special on like credential theft.
How can I help you go rob people, right?
Right.
That's really what they're doing.
Right.
We've got a bunch of trusted advisors on the call, Tom. How should our trusted advisors approach their customers about these things? I mean, we don't want to go to the customers and talk about the dark web and all this stuff that's going on, but we do want to get out there and we want to help protect them, right? And I still believe that email is the #1 breach, if I remember correctly, on how people get into systems. How should we have our partners positioning Mimecast? What would you be 30 seconds about how great you guys are?
So, I mean, look, the 30-second pitch on this one, as you're out talking about email, 95% of all breaches involve email in some capacity. So that speaks to the nature of the blended threat. When discussing cybersecurity with email security as your centerpiece, there are two options available to you. One is protect and defend and remediate. That's what Mimecast does. Is ransomware comes in, we'll block it. Something comes in that's a 0-day, never before seen, our artificial intelligence or machine learning didn't pick up on it. It suddenly reveals itself to be malicious. We have remediation tools that will yank it, pull it from the email archive, and destroy it. So we have the protect, defend, remediate component. The second piece from Mimecast is all about user education. It's about enabling your users to become, in the past, we used to say words like human firewall, right? I don't like that because it's disparaging, right? Rather, we end up folding our end users into the fabric of the cybersecurity culture at the organization. And there's lots of really interesting technology that's evolving, and we're at the forefront of it here at Mimecast. When you start looking at the ways in which we can engage, or an IT team or a security team can engage with your end users and allow them to make informed decisions, which then is crowdsourced or crowdsurfed to all other users. A good example, I get an email from Mark. Mark's on a different domain than I am. A banner that's intelligent would say something to the effect of, this is the first time you've received an email from Mark. However, we know that Mark is engaged with others within your organization. The risk is lower, right? That little additional piece of intelligence helps end users make informed decisions. And it will also lessen the possibility of false negatives.
Yeah, man. Security awareness, right? That's a really big factor. And you're right. It all starts and ends with the end users. I mean, at the end of the day, if we can get those end users to not believe that there's a prince somewhere in the Middle East who's giving them $10 million if they click on this link, right? I mean, that's the old one, or the FedEx one, right? If you can buy something that's being shipped from FedEx, please don't open the FedEx link. I mean, common sense is what we would like our end users to use, but sometimes they don't. And security awareness that Mimecast brings to market is extremely powerful. We sell a ton of that with our trusted partners, Tom. So it's a great product for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, that awareness training is very popular with all of our customers. That's the awareness side of the house. The phishing simulation is still important too. So if you're in security and you need to test your people, we also built other innovations. We call it Safe Phish. The advantage of having a secure email gateway and having a phishing simulation engine or tool is that by virtue of the SEG, the secure email gateway, we're seeing all the nasty stuff that has been tailor written for you, right? There's generic email and spam and generic phishing attacks. I mean, every phishing simulation product on the market comes with pre-canned, here's what we think your employees might fall for. Right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you're not really measuring on real risk when you do that. You're measuring on fabricated risk. So we have this notion of being able to defang a real targeted attack, immediately make it available defanged as a phishing simulation, and then follow it up with awareness training. So that's ransomware is huge. I mean, we could go on there for quite some time.
We could.
I feel like I will wrap on this one. Cyber resilience is what Mimecast is all about. We've created a platform, as you heard. We have this amazing cloud infrastructure. We focused on email because it is the tip of the spear when it comes to all attacks. But we've also broadened our portfolio to include other cyber resilience tool sets that all communicate with our email engine. So as you know, as COVID winds down, right? Fingers crossed, it appears as such. And as we begin to return to work, or whatever the hybrid work environment of the future is going to look like, all of the observations that you'll find in this report in particular is being folded directly into the strategy and into our product roadmaps, because this is really the way in which your customers, our mutual customers are going to need to engage in a post-COVID world.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tom. If you go to the next slide for me, we'll wrap this up for our listeners today. Secure access to all your services, right? This is just one item, guys. All guys and gals listening today, all of our trusted advisors and our sales partners. Email security is one piece of it, right? We need web security. We need monitoring and management. We need anti-malware. We need managed firewalls. We need network security. If you're a larger mid-market to small enterprise to enterprise company, you need a SIM. Think about all of the pieces of the puzzle. Security is the #1 issue for our IT purchasers today, the people who are procuring IT. There's nothing higher on their list than security. And the pandemic drove us here, guys. When all these people had to go home and work from home, all of a sudden they were accessing corporate networks with home computers. You want to take an IT director and put him across the fire? That's how you do it. They can't stand the idea of a home computer accessing the corporate network. Obviously, everybody on the call knows that RapidScale is very much a desktop as a service company, and that's one way around utilizing that home computer, or you bring your own device and accessing the corporate network securely. But I am telling you guys right now, we have tools with Mimecast that will allow you to take the customer's URL and your customers, your base of customers, and you can run all of your customer URLs through a Mimecast tool that will tell you if they've got email security protecting them. And if they don't, that's a door that's wide open for us to go and start a conversation around email security. It happens every single minute of every single day. One of our customers gets hacked, they get ransomware, they get locked up, right? Or worse, their information gets, to Tom's point, their information gets hijacked and taken to the dark web. We're here to help you guys, and all of our cloud solutions consultants throughout the country are here, and our solution engineers are very much experts in this. I really want to thank Tom for joining us today and sharing this information around Mimecast. And Summer, I might have an idea for a future with another one of these with Tom, maybe in the fourth quarter. I'd love to see the anatomy of an attack, Tom. That excites the heck out of me. And I think our listeners would enjoy that as well. With Summer, I'm going to hand it to you and ask if we have any questions with 2 minutes to go that Tom might be able to answer from the crowd.
Yes, I have a couple here right now. So let's start with, to your point, Mark, only so much can be done for a customer after they've been hit with something like ransomware. How can we emphasize how important solutions like this are before that happens to them? Would you primarily speak to the cost of a breach versus the cost of the technology?
Tom, you want to take that?
Yeah, it was a great question. So so the cybersecurity industry, I mean, one of the things that for the last 10 years we've always led with has been sort of stats regarding number of ransomware attacks, average cost of ransomware before, during, and after. As an industry, we're kind of slowing down on stats because frankly, the news cycle is doing our work for us. The amount of data that's out there when it comes to stats, typically as you're engaging with customers, build your own story. Build a story about the threat landscape, leveraging the stats that most affect the client's environment. Like if they're in shipping, right? Look for those stats around ransomware. Fear-based selling is still a thing, right? I mean, it sounds Sounds wrong, but I mean, there is definitely a fear in the industry. Touch on it and then move on to the solution. Everybody loves to hear about, okay, great, I understand the problem. And that's the other observation I guess we've made, is that for the most part, the market is savvy to what the threats are. They might not have the full picture, but they know that there's a problem. They're really interested in solutions. So hopefully that helps.
Got time for one more, Summer?
Yes, let's wrap up with this one. How do you think hybrid work, which is likely the next step for most organizations, complicates security even further coming out of fully remote work?
Well, I mean, Mark, I don't know if you have some thoughts on here too, but I would say that right now, globally, we have never been better prepared for a hybrid work environment than we are right now. I encourage us as a global community to not give up the diligence on remaining hybrid, because at the end of the day, our organizations and end users, their workers are frankly gravitating out of the major offices and stuff. So I believe right now, moving into hybrid, we're in a good position. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like we've cleaned up all the problems associated with MFA, cleaned up, cloud to cloud connectivity and security. Messaging platforms or collaboration platforms, I feel, are getting more and more united in ways that they had never done before. So I think the world is ready to accommodate hybrid. Fingers crossed.
Tom, I would agree with you on that. I think one of the things that we all have to understand is, even as we're rounding out of this pandemic, the social distancing isn't going away. RapidScale is now a part of Cox Enterprises, right? We've got 60,000 employees. And when you look at having 60,000 employees officed and you need 6 feet of separation between those employees, the space you're going to need is going to grow exponentially. And I think the biggest thing we've seen in the work from home mode was a lot of people worried, would our workers be productive if they work from home? And I think the overall response is they've been as productive, if not more so. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Apologize about going 2 minutes over. Tom, thank you so much for coming today. Do we have this, Summer, I'm going to ask you real quick, do we have the document that Mimecast had available to share with our partners?
Yes, I will be attaching the report as well as the deck and the recording for you guys in the follow-up.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Tom. Thank you, Summer and Nikki, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. Don't forget to register for June. It's right around the corner. We'll be putting that out shortly, and appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Thank you very much.